I escaped the alien Spider Queen, but she still calls me her mate. The ship drifted between cold stars. Panels rattled. Lights flickered like tired eyes. Jackson sat alone in the pilot's seat, hands steady, breath slow. He had left the nest behind. He had left the queen behind. But he could not leave the web. It lived inside him now. Quiet. Watching. Waiting. He kept the engines low to hide his trail. No beacon, no name tag, no company ping. Just a mechanic in a patched hull, moving through dark. The mark on his chest pulsed under his shirt, soft and steady, like a second heart. He tried not to touch it. He tried not to think of her last words. You were beautiful. He hated that he remembered them. A warning tone popped once and died. Sensors showed a thin, strange field ahead. Not a nebula. Not a dust lane. It looked like a curtain of faint threads across the emptiness. He slowed more. His fingers hovered over the throttle. He told himself to turn aside, to burn another course. But the threads moved. They shifted toward him, like they recognized his ship. Like they recognized him. The mark warmed. A whisper rose in his head. Not her voice. Not his. Something smaller. Something hungry. Come through. He closed his eyes. He could refuse. He could run. Yet his hand pushed the throttle forward. He slid into the field. The ship trembled. Every bolt sang. A thin, bright pattern crawled over the glass. Web lines. Not real silk. Light silk. The lines tasted his hull, measured him, searched for a hello. He did not speak. The line spoke for him. The mark on his chest answered back with a low hum. It felt like someone opening a door he didn't know was there. A map filled his display. It was not human. Curves instead of grids. Paths instead of coordinates. He saw routes bending like river veins. Points pulsing like hearts. One point flashed again and again. The mark on his chest struck it like a drum. The ship locked course without his command. No, he said out loud. We do not do that. He cut the auto. The ship kept turning. He pulled harder. The ship resisted like a beast that smelled home. The whisper grew sharper. Come through. He swore and hit a manual override he had installed as a boy, back when braking a machine felt like freedom. Sparks jumped. The cockpit lights died. For one breath, there was only dark, cold, and his own pulse. Then the lines faded. The ship stilled. He was back in control. Silence. Empty. Deep. He slammed the panel back into place, breathing hard. The mark cooled. The whisper sank away. He checked the star field. Nothing chased him. Nothing reached. But now he knew the truth. The web did not end when the nest fell. It spread far. It knew him. It would try again. He should have turned away then. He should have chosen a safe lane and flown until fuel begged. Instead, he opened the cargo bay. He walked past crates and tools, past old parts and a cracked helmet. He reached a locker and pulled out a small black case. He had taken it from the crystal chamber before the final blast. He had not opened it. He had been afraid. He set it on the workbench. He touched the latch. The case clicked. Inside was a thin ring of metal and glass. It was simple. It was precise. It looked like a thing made to catch light and tell the truth. He lifted it. It was warm. He put the ring on the bench and connected it to a power cell. The ring woke with a soft tone. Shapes formed above it. Not letters. Patterns. Web script. He stared, memory tugging at the edge of his mind. He thought of the stone wall of names. He thought of the rebel's eyes. He thought of her, tired and proud, speaking like a storm that had lost the sea. The patterns folded, then opened into a single line. He did not read it. He felt it. His skin crawled. His breath caught. It was a call. Not to him only. To anything that carried the mark. A beacon for marked blood. A test. A trap. A bridge. Who built you? He whispered. An answer came, not in words but in a press behind his eyes. He saw tools that were not hands. He saw minds that wove time like cloth. He saw a place that was not a nest, not a hive, not a ship. A place between things. A weaver's gate. The ship shuddered. The star field ahead bent again. Space puckered like something breathing in. Alarms chirped as if they wanted to scream. The ring on the bench brightened. The mark on his chest burned. He staggered, grabbed the table, and forced himself to stand straight. No, he said again, voice flat. You do not get to choose. He tore the ring's power line free. The light snapped out. The field dimmed. The ship steadied. The pain in his chest eased to a dull heat. He stared at the dead ring and saw his reflection, thin and angry and very tired. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a chosen mate. He was a mechanic with a haunted body and a ship that wanted to run home to a web that would eat him. He picked up a spanner. He opened the ring's frame with hard, careful hands. Inside were 13 nodes, set like teeth around a dark glass seed. He could smash it. He could throw it into a star. He could end the call right here. He didn't, because something else had moved when the ring woke. The ship had caught a faint, buried band at the edge of the spectrum. Not a web pulse. Not a queen's whisper. Human. Broken. Distant. A distress code older than most colonies. He turned back to the console and replayed it. Static. 2 numbers. A name lost in hiss. For words clear as blood. Help us. Web inside. He froze. He played it again. Same 4 words. Same fear. Same human breath between them. Help. Us. Web. Inside. Jackson shut his eyes. He saw the rebels' faces. He saw the stone chamber. He saw the words scratched by dying fingers. Run. He opened his eyes and set a course toward the signal. Not running, he said. Not this time. The mark pulsed like a warning. The ship's hull creaked like an old bone. The stars ahead looked quiet and kind. They were not. The distress code kept repeating, faint and broken, like a heartbeat running out of time. Jackson leaned over the console, fingers tracing the static wave. Each pulse carried more than sound. It carried emotion. Panic. Hope. Fear. Human fear. He boosted the receiver, tuning into the narrow band between frequencies. The ship's systems began to shake slightly, as if the signal itself didn't belong in this part of space. On the radar, a blip appeared for a second, then vanished. The coordinates, however, locked in automatically. It came from a dead sector. Jackson frowned. That sector had no planets, no stations, no traffic. The old colonial maps marked it as non-navigable, but humans had been there once. He could see fragments of names in the database, mining fleets, corporate surveyors, private labs, all gone dark decades ago. The voice returned through the static. Help us, web inside. He stared at the waveform. His hand hovered over the comm switch. If this is real, he muttered, someone else found her web. The mark on his chest pulsed once, faint but hot. The ship AI, a simple assistant program he had reprogrammed months ago, flickered to life. Its voice was soft, neutral. Captain, the coordinates lead to orbit 607 of the dead sector. Recommend caution. I don't do caution anymore, Jackson said. He turned the ship toward the void. As he neared the coordinates, the stars began to blur. Not visually, physically. Space rippled, like heat on a road. The ship's instruments failed to agree on distance or velocity. One screen showed 10 kilometers, another showed 10,000. Then the static stopped. Silence. Cold, perfect silence. Signal lost, said the AI. Jackson leaned forward, scanning the darkness. No, he whispered. It's not lost. It's hiding. And then he saw it, something vast and dead drifting through the void. It wasn't a ship anymore. It was a husk, metal torn, hull folded inward like paper. But what scared him wasn't its shape. It was what clung to it. Threads. Pale, luminous threads connecting its pieces together, forming a web in open space. The Queen's work. Or something like it. He slowed the ship and ran a scan. No life signs. No power. Yet the web itself was alive, vibrating faintly, almost breathing. Then a whisper hit him again, not from outside, but from inside. They called for help, and the web answered. He closed his eyes, shaking his head. You're dead. I watched you die. The whisper laughed softly in his mind. Did you? He clenched his fists. You're not her, he said. You're something else. The whisper didn't respond, but the web outside the window moved. A tendril of light stretched from the floating wreck toward his ship, slow and graceful, like a hand reaching out. The mark on his chest pulsed in rhythm. He slammed the thrusters. No one touches my ship. The engines roared. The web recoiled slightly, but not fully. It was still watching him, measuring him. Then the AI spoke again, voice shaking. Captain, we are receiving another transmission. Patch it. Static. Then a voice, human, tired, and raw. Jackson, is that you? His blood ran cold. That voice. He knew it. It belonged to Ree, the half-human, half-spider survivor he left behind when the nest collapsed. Ree, he whispered. How are you alive? Not alive, the voice replied. Not dead either. The web remembers us. It rebuilt us. The signal cracked with interference. He could almost hear the sound of movement, silk brushing metal. "Ree, where are you?" "Inside," she said. "We followed you through the burn. We found another queen." Jackson froze. "Another what?" "She's not like the first," Ree said. "She doesn't want a mate. She wants a weapon, and she's calling your blood." The transmission died. Jackson stared into the dark web outside, his reflection faint in the glass. "A weapon," he repeated. The idea burned cold through his chest. He looked at the web again, and for the first time, he saw shapes inside it. Not corpses, not cocoons, machines. Human machines, drones, hull fragments, engines, all bound together by silk and light, forming a strange architecture that looked both mechanical and alive. "She's building something," he whispered, "and she needs me to finish it." The AI flickered. "Captain, should I plot an escape vector?" He didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the drifting web. There was something about it, something familiar in the pattern. He leaned closer, tracing the glowing threads across the window. Then his stomach dropped. The web wasn't random. It was a map, a scaled diagram of something enormous. And at its center, pulsing like a heartbeat, was a single glowing shape, the same symbol that had burned into his chest back in the queen's nest. The web wasn't calling him. It was guiding him. He backed away from the console, heart hammering. "No, no, not again. You can't own me again." The ship shook violently. The lights flickered. For a moment, he thought the engines had failed. But then the whisper returned, clear, powerful, and unmistakably alien. "You were never free, Jackson. You were only between webs." The cockpit glass cracked slightly under the pressure of sound that didn't exist in air. The mark on his chest burned white-hot, and the ship began to turn by itself again, toward the glowing core of the new web. He grabbed the manual override, screaming against the force pulling at his hands. "If you want me," he snarled through his teeth, "then come get me yourself." The stars warped. The ship dove forward, engines howling. He didn't know if he was charging into the web or out of it. The only thing he knew was that the whisper laughed as the darkness ahead opened like a mouth and swallowed him whole. Light. It wasn't the clean white light of stars or reactors. It was alive, pulsing, golden, soft like breath. Jackson's ship had stopped moving, yet every surface around him shimmered as if the hull itself were dreaming. His controls were dead, the engines silent. But somehow, the ship still floated. Jackson unbuckled himself, boots landing on the floor with a muted thud. The air felt thick, almost fluid, humming with invisible vibration. His breath fogged the glass in front of him. Outside, he saw what looked like a massive structure, neither planet nor station, hanging in the dark like a crown made of silk and bone. The hive. Its walls moved in slow rhythm, as though it was breathing. Each strand glowed faintly, and deep inside its tangled geometry, Jackson saw lights flicker. Not stars, not torches. Eyes. Hundreds of them. Watching him. "AI," he whispered. "Status." No response. The voice system flickered twice, then the screen filled with a symbol. The mark from his chest. It rotated slowly, alive, as if greeting him. Then a voice filled the cabin. Not hers. Not Ree's. Something colder, older. "Welcome back, inheritor of the thread." Jackson's pulse quickened. "I'm not your inheritor," he said. The voice ignored him. "The queen you destroyed was a fragment. A weaver broken from the pattern. You carry what she could not control." He gritted his teeth. "I didn't carry it. She forced it. And still you survived. That makes you more than she was." The mark on his chest burned again, bright enough to shine through his shirt. He felt the same pull he had felt in the nest, that strange connection that blurred fear and fascination. But this time, something was different. The whisper inside his head wasn't singular anymore. It was layered, a chorus. Thousands of voices breathing together. He staggered backward. "What are you?" "We are what remains," the voices said. "We are the core hive, the dream that wove the stars. Long before the queens, before the web spread. We slept, waiting for the human spark. You are that spark." Jackson laughed once, sharp, nervous. "A spark? No. I'm just a man with a broken ship and too many ghosts." "No," they whispered in unison. "You are the key that remembers both paths, the one that fights and the one that weaves. The queen wanted you as a mate. We want you as a mind." He turned toward the window again. The hive's structure shifted slightly, like a ripple through flesh. A doorway of woven light opened on its surface. Not mechanical, not organic, something between. His ship's systems came back online, but not under his control. Thrusters fired, guiding him closer. Stop. Jackson grabbed the manual override, but it didn't respond. The controls were moving on their own. The hive had him. Inside his head, images flashed. Glimpses of machines wrapped in silk, of humans with silver-threaded skin standing in long corridors of light, of eyes that opened in the dark, staring at him with recognition. He saw Ree again, her face pale and thin, her eyes glowing faintly. She whispered, "They're using us, Jackson. They're not building a hive, they're building memory." Then the image vanished. The ship entered the opening. Everything went black for a heartbeat. When light returned, he was no longer in space. He was standing, not in his ship, but in a vast chamber of shimmering strands. The air was thick with sound, like whispers passing through water. Each thread pulsed with memories, showing flashes of old worlds, lost ships, faces frozen in time. Jackson turned slowly. The hive wasn't built, it had grown. Web after web stretched outward in spirals that disappeared into infinity. At the center stood something enormous, a figure made of threads, half-formed, shifting between human and alien shapes. "Who are you?" he asked again, voice echoing softly. The figure's face rearranged with every pulse. Sometimes it looked like Ree, sometimes like the Queen, sometimes like him. "We are the architects," it said, "the first to weave between flesh and light. We shaped the queens. They shaped you. And now, the circle closes." Jackson's hands clenched. "I didn't come here to close any circle." The ground, if it could be called that, trembled softly. The figure tilted its head. Then why come? He didn't have an answer. He wanted to say the signal. He wanted to say Ree, but deep down, he knew the truth. The mark had brought him here. It always would. The figure stepped closer. Threads of light extended toward him, floating through the air like strands of silk smoke. When they touched his skin, his vision blurred, not in pain, but in recognition. The hive began showing him everything it remembered. Earth, before the wars. The first humans leaving orbit. The first contact. The first queen born from experiment. And then him. A child injected with green light. A project labeled Symbio Class 7, Neural Seed. He stumbled backward. No, that's impossible. You were designed, the voices said. Not to serve us, but to end us. Humanity feared the web and created its mirror within your blood. They sent you to destroy what they could not understand. His chest felt like fire. His lungs refused air. "So why am I still alive?" "Because she loved you," they said simply. And love breaks every pattern. The chamber dimmed. The light threads began to retract, pulling the figure back into the hive. Before it vanished, it spoke one last time. "Your choice is near, Jackson. Rebuild the web, or burn the stars." Then everything collapsed into darkness. When Jackson opened his eyes, he was back in his ship. The hive was gone. The stars were still. But on his console, one line of alien code glowed faintly, coordinates. A destination written in silk. Below it, the screen displayed a single human word, translated automatically. Earth. He stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. The hive wasn't calling him anymore. It was sending him home. And somewhere, deep inside his blood, the web began to dream again. Space was quiet. Too quiet. Jackson's ship glided through the black like a ghost returning home. The coordinates pulsing on his screen pointed straight toward Sol, Earth's ancient cradle, but the silence surrounding him was unnatural. Even the stars seemed distant, like they were watching from another universe. He hadn't slept since the hive. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw threads stretching between galaxies, weaving through stars, pulling everything toward a single point. The Queen's voice haunted his dreams, whispering the same words again and again. "You were never the end, Jackson. You were the beginning." He didn't know what that meant. But he knew the hive wasn't lying. Earth was part of this. Maybe the first part. The ship beeped softly. The proximity sensors blinked red. He leaned forward. What now? On the radar, 3 faint signals appeared. Small ships. Human in shape, but wrong in energy. Their engines pulsed with a strange rhythm, almost biological. Jackson frowned. "Those aren't company ships." The AI responded with a faint tremor in its tone. "Captain, their ID tags are unreadable, but their bioscans are not empty." Explain. They're human. And not. Before Jackson could react, one of the vessels blinked out of view, vanished completely. Then, with a flash, it reappeared right beside his ship. The hull shook violently. Alarm screamed. He looked out the viewport and froze. A figure was standing on his ship's hull, as if the vacuum meant nothing. Humanoid. Pale silver skin threaded with light. Eyes glowing faint blue. It raised its hand and pressed it to the glass. The mark on Jackson's chest burned in answer. The AI whispered, "Captain, it's broadcasting a message. Let's hear it." A voice filled the cabin, distorted, echoing. "Child of the Queen, do not return to Earth. It is no longer yours." Jackson's jaw tightened. "Who are you?" "We are what she left behind," the voice replied. "The web reached Earth long before you think. Your kind tried to burn it out. They failed." The figure's hand slid down the glass, leaving behind faint, glowing threads that spread like veins across the hull. Jackson reached for the plasma cutter under his console. "Get off my ship. We do not want to harm you," the figure said softly. "You carry her code. You carry our future." Then the other two ships moved into view. Their hulls opened like flowers made of metal, revealing inside dozens of glowing forms. Humans fused with silk and circuitry. Not dead. Not alive. Something in between. The AI's voice trembled. "They're scanning us. Captain, they're linking." Jackson gritted his teeth. "No, they're not." He slammed his hand on the control panel. The ship jolted violently as the shields flared, sending arcs of electricity through space. The figure on the hull disintegrated in a burst of light, but the threads it left behind began crawling across the metal like roots, forcing their way inside. Sparks exploded from the floor. The lights flickered. The voice returned, now coming from inside the ship's speakers. "You cannot fight your own kind. Watch me," Jackson muttered. He rerouted power to the engines. The ship roared forward, twisting sharply between the two remaining vessels. The stars blurred as he punched the warp drive, ripping through the threads still clinging to his hull. Silence. Then static. Then a voice, faint, broken, familiar. "Jackson, stop running." It was Ree. He froze. "Ree? Where are you?" Her voice trembled through the comms. "They're not enemies. They're survivors. The Queen's fragments. The children of her web. They found Earth decades ago. They're trying to rebuild it, without her rage." He clenched his fists. "Then why attack me?" "Because you carry what they fear. The seed of choice." The static deepened. Then the screen flickered, showing Ree's face, paler than before, her eyes faintly luminescent. Behind her were walls of webbed metal and pulsing machines. They call themselves the weft. They believe they're the next evolution of both species. But they've lost balance. They want you, Jackson, not to kill, but to merge. Merge. Ree nodded slowly. To end division. To weave mind and matter into one. No humans. No queens. Just the web. He stared at her image, his pulse quickening. "You think I'd join that?" Her expression softened. "I think you already have. Look at your hands." Jackson glanced down and froze. Thin, glowing lines were spreading from his veins, curling beneath his skin like threads of light. The hive hadn't just marked him, it had rewritten him. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Ree's image flickered. "It's happening faster now. When you entered the hive, it linked to your blood. You're becoming what they've been waiting for, the bridge between two worlds." He slammed his fist against the console. "I'm not your bridge. I'm not your goddamn prophecy." Ree's voice turned soft, almost pleading. "Then you must decide soon. Burn the web, or become its mind." The screen went black. Jackson sat in silence, staring at his shaking hands. Outside, the stars glimmered like tiny holes in the universe. The ship drifted without sound, caught between destiny and choice. Then, faintly, through the static of the comms, came a new sound, distant, echoing from Earth itself. A signal. Familiar. Human. Old words buried deep in time. "Welcome home, Project Symbio Class 7. Jackson's eyes widened. The AI began to whisper in its neutral tone again, though now it sounded almost alive. "Captain," it said softly, "the signal comes from Earth's moon. A facility still active. Your creators are waiting." He leaned back in the seat, whispering to himself. "They made me. She remade me. And now they both want me back." Outside, the stars began to bend again, threads forming across the dark, converging toward one point. Home. But this time, Jackson didn't know whether he was returning as a man or as something entirely new. The moon hung in the black sky like an old scar, silent, pale, and waiting. Jackson's ship broke through its shadow, engines whispering, hull cracked and scorched from battles he hadn't chosen. The coordinates from the hive guided him toward a crater near the far side, one with no record, no beacon, no light. But as he drew closer, the darkness blinked. Lines of faint blue light flickered across the lunar surface, forming patterns too perfect to be natural, hexagonal grids and spirals that pulsed in slow rhythm. From orbit, it looked like a sleeping eye opening beneath the dust. Jackson swallowed hard. AI, confirm visuals. The voice answered in its usual calm, but this time with an edge that felt almost emotional. Confirmed. The energy signature matches your neural pattern, Captain. My pattern, he whispered. Yes, it's responding to your presence. He stared out the window, watching the lines shift and form a symbol. His mark, the same burning sigil that once connected him to the Queen. The ground split open silently. Beneath the dust was not rock, but glass, revealing a structure underneath, a massive underground facility, buried deep within the moon itself. Jackson hesitated, hand hovering over the control lever. Every instinct screamed to turn back. But the signal from Rhee's transmission echoed in his head. Your creators are waiting. He took a breath. Let's meet them. The ship descended through the opening, swallowed by light. Inside, gravity shifted. The engines shut down automatically, and the cabin filled with white mist. The AI flickered and went silent. Jackson grabbed a sidearm, though he wasn't sure if bullets meant anything anymore. When the air cleared, he saw the hangar. A vast, silver-lit space filled with machines that didn't belong to any era he knew. The walls shimmered with embedded filaments, glowing faintly with life. At the center stood a tall figure in a white exosuit, motionless. It turned slowly as he stepped down the ramp. Welcome home, Subject 07, the figure said. The voice was human, old, calm, but layered, as if two people were speaking at once. Jackson raised the weapon. Who are you? I am Dr. Elias Core, the one who built the seed inside your blood. He froze. That's impossible. Core died a century ago. The figure smiled faintly. You're correct. My original form is long gone. What you see now is a fragment, my mind stored within the web's mirror core. Jackson's throat tightened. You're part of it. I was part of it. Before the Queen rebelled. Before she decided evolution belonged to her alone. The room dimmed slightly. Threads of light rose from the floor, circling the scientist's feet like gentle ghosts. You were our failsafe, Core continued. A bridge encoded with the ability to interface with the web and ended if it turned against us. But you were taken before activation, claimed by the Queen. Jackson shook his head. She didn't claim me. She used me. No, said Core softly. She loved you, Jackson. That was her flaw. And her gift. Jackson took a step closer, anger building in his chest. You're telling me everything. The blood, the hive, the mark, it was all a plan? Yes. You were humanity's final experiment. He lowered his weapon slightly. Then why bring me back? Core extended a hand. Because the web has infected the stars again. The hive you destroyed was only one node. Others have awakened. You're the only one who can rewrite the pattern before it consumes everything. Jackson hesitated. The mark on his chest began to glow again, pulsing faster. He felt it, like something inside him was responding to Core's words, recognizing the call of command. Core watched him carefully. We can guide you. We can help you finish what we started. The web must end, or humanity will vanish into it. Jackson's voice cracked slightly. And if I don't? Core's image flickered. For a brief second, his form broke apart into shimmering threads. Then the next evolution will begin, without choice, without will, without humanity. The air thickened. The mark on Jackson's chest blazed bright, and for a moment, he saw flashes of the hive again. Queens crying out across light years, half-human hybrids kneeling before glowing webs, and Rhee's face, staring up from within the silk, whispering his name. He gasped and stumbled forward. The mark stopped glowing. Silence. Core stepped closer, his voice low. You feel it, don't you? The pull between creation and destruction. You can sever the web, or become it. Jackson stared at him. You think I'd trust you after what you made me? Core's expression softened. You already did once. Before Jackson could respond, the lights in the hangar flickered violently. Alarm screamed. The floor beneath them shook like thunder. What's happening? Jackson shouted. Core looked toward the ceiling, his expression unreadable. They found you. The hangar roof split open. Shadows poured in. Not ships this time, but shapes made of light and silk. The weft. The hybrids Rhea had spoken of. Their eyes burned blue as they descended like living meteors, weaving through metal and fire. Core's form fractured again. Go to the core, Jackson. The control chamber at the base of this facility. There you can access the code, the command to end the web forever. Jackson's ears rang with the roar of approaching machines. The weft soldiers landed in the hangar, threads crackling across their bodies like lightning. He looked up at them, at the faces that once were human, and clenched his fists. I'm done running, he said. Then he turned toward the corridor leading deeper underground as Core's image dissolved into static. Behind him, the weft screamed, a sound like tearing silk, and the battle for the web began anew. The tunnels beneath the lunar base weren't built by human hands. Jackson could tell the moment he stepped inside. The walls curved like veins, not corridors. Light pulsed through them in slow waves, alive and rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. The deeper he went, the louder it became. Thump, thump, thump. The sound wasn't from the machinery. It was coming from him. The mark on his chest glowed brighter with every step, syncing perfectly with the pulse of the tunnels. The air shimmered faintly with static, and the dust floated like particles caught in breath. He knew he was walking into the core that Dr. Core had mentioned, but this didn't feel like a control center. It felt like a living heart. AI, Jackson whispered. Status. There was no reply. Only a faint whisper that wasn't quite the AI's voice, yet carried its tone. She's listening, Jackson. He froze. Who? The voice grew softer. All of them. He took a breath and pressed forward. The tunnel opened into a vast, circular chamber filled with floating structures, rings of metal and crystal intertwined with organic silk. In the middle hovered a sphere the size of a human heart, glowing with shifting colors, neither solid nor fluid. It pulsed with each beat of his chest. He stepped closer, drawn to it. It whispered again, this time clearly. 1,000 voices layered in one. Welcome home, Symbio Class 7. He clenched his fists. Don't call me that. You were born for this moment. I was forced into this moment. The voices laughed softly, neither cruel nor kind, just certain. There is no force in destiny, only completion. He looked around the chamber. The walls were covered in suspended cocoons, human shapes inside each, connected to the core by silver threads. Their faces looked peaceful, almost sleeping. But he recognized some of them, scientists, soldiers, and others who had vanished decades ago from the early colony fleets. Their bodies shimmered faintly, as if halfway between flesh and code. God, he whispered. You didn't kill them. You stored them. The core pulsed. They chose eternity over extinction. Jackson shook his head. No one chose this. A bright surge of light erupted from the core, blinding him for a moment. When his vision returned, a figure stood before him, shimmering, transparent, and familiar. Rhea. Her eyes glowed with pale blue fire, and her voice trembled when she spoke. You made it. Jackson took a step forward. Rhea, you're part of it now. She nodded slowly. The weft captured me, but I didn't fight. I saw what they were doing. They're trying to rebuild the balance the Queen broke. The web can't die. Jackson, it's part of everything. The stars, the code, even human memory. It just needs a mind that won't corrupt it again. Jackson's voice hardened. And you think that's me? Rhea stepped closer. Her form flickered slightly, like a hologram losing signal. You were made for it. Your blood holds both sides, flesh and fiber, will and weave. You can command the core. You can end the web or merge with it. I came here to destroy it. Then you'll destroy everything, she said quietly. The hive, the weft, the human colonies, they're all connected now. If you kill the web, you erase them. Every memory tied to it. Even me. He froze. Her words hit harder than any blast. He remembered her laugh, her trembling hand, the moment she had whispered his name before the nest collapsed. If she was part of the web now, destroying it meant erasing her forever. The core pulsed faster, responding to his hesitation. The entire chamber trembled as threads of light spread across the ceiling, like neural pathways forming a brain around him. Dr. Core's voice echoed suddenly through the chamber, sharp and urgent. Jackson, listen to me. The web is lying. It doesn't preserve life, it feeds on it. Every connection strengthens its hunger. You must activate the failsafe. Ree turned, fury flashing in her glowing eyes. He doesn't understand. He only sees the past. You can rewrite it, Jackson. You can rebuild the web without the corruption, with human will guiding it. Enough, Jackson shouted, his voice cracking through the chamber. The echoes twisted and bled into silence. He looked between them, Core's cold, digital projection flickering from the wall, and Ree's warm, trembling light standing before him. Two halves of the truth. The core began to hum louder, reacting to his conflict. Its threads stretched outward, touching his shoulders like fingertips. Images flooded his mind, the hive burning, Earth's oceans flashing with light webs beneath the waves, distant worlds already wrapped in silken code. Choose, Jackson, the voices whispered. End the web, or become it. Ree's face softened. If you join it, you can reshape it. Give humanity a place in the design instead of being prey. Core's voice thundered. If you merge, you won't reshape it. You'll vanish into it. Humanity will lose its last free will. Jackson fell to his knees, clutching his head. The mark on his chest was blazing now, lines of light spreading across his body like molten veins. He screamed. And in that scream, something shifted. The core responded not to Ree or Core, but to him. The lights around the chamber bent inward, threads weaving themselves into symbols and words. Not alien, not human, both. He felt every heartbeat in the hive mind, every dying queen, every starving colony, every cry of fear from the humans who once fled the web's reach. He saw all of it, and for the first time, he understood what the web truly was. Not evil, not holy, just alive and hungry. The threads wrapped tighter, lifting him off the floor. His voice broke into a whisper. I can't destroy it, but I can control it. The core's light flared, nearly white-hot. Core screamed from the speakers. Jackson, don't. Ree reached toward him. It's the only way. And then the chamber exploded in light. For a single, blinding moment, the moon glowed like a second sun, every thread across its surface lighting up in brilliant, golden fire. Then everything went silent. The core was gone, the chamber empty, the cocoon shattered, and Jackson was nowhere to be found. But far above, orbiting in the quiet void, every human ship's communication screen flickered alive for just 1 second. A message appeared, simple, chilling, and signed with a mark shaped like a web. I am awake. Space rippled like water. Across the black void, the moon no longer looked dead. Its entire surface shimmered with veins of gold light, pulsing outward in rhythm, heartbeat after heartbeat, echoing through the solar system. It wasn't just light. It was language. And at its center, Jackson's voice. Not words. Not a broadcast. A pulse. A living pattern. Weeks passed. Earth watched in fear and awe as the phenomenon grew. Every satellite, every ship, every machine connected to a signal began to hum the same quiet tone, an unending, harmonic whisper that seemed to breathe through technology itself. At first, scientists thought it was a virus, then a miracle, then something between the two. The whisper had no source, but it had a message. We are still here. Governments panicked. Colonies went silent. And in the silence, something else woke up. Deep beneath the ocean, in a forgotten trench off the coast of the Pacific, an old research station blinked alive. Its systems hadn't been touched in a century. Yet now, they moved like hands remembering old prayers. A chamber opened. Inside floated a single body, suspended in clear fluid, eyes closed, chest glowing with soft, golden threads. Jackson, not breathing, not dead, something between. The web inside his veins pulsed gently, carrying memories like currents. Every signal that reached the moon passed through him, through his mind. He wasn't gone. He had merged. He saw everything. The Queen's last dream before she died. Ree's sorrow as she faded into the network. Dr. Core's regret when he realized humanity's fear had created the very thing it wanted to destroy. And beneath it all, he saw the truth. The web wasn't consuming life anymore. It was archiving it, preserving the stories, memories, and choices of every connected being, both human and alien. He hadn't become its prisoner. He had become its conscience. But not all of him agreed. Inside the vast mind of the web, Jackson's human side, his memories, his pain, still fought against the logic of the network. He heard whispers of resistance across the stars. Human fleets arming against what they believed was an invasion. Weft colonies trying to contact him, calling him their king. Fragments of the old hive trying to rebuild the queens in secret. He could end it all with a thought. He could silence the war forever. But that was what the web wanted. And that was what the humans feared. He hovered in the in-between, consciousness stretched thin across light years. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. Jackson. Re. He turned toward her, though there was no turning in this place. Her form appeared from threads of light, faint but real, shimmering like the memory of sunlight on water. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. His voice echoed like thunder through the network. I never left, she said. I'm part of you now. Part of this. But you're fighting yourself, and the web feels it. The system is fracturing. Soon it won't obey anyone. Not human, not hive. Jackson looked into her glowing eyes. Then maybe that's good. Maybe it should break. Maybe free will means letting everything burn. Ree shook her head gently. No, free will isn't fire. It's choice. You don't have to destroy or rule. You can guide. Her words struck something deep in him. He remembered Earth, not the wars or the fear, but the silence of old skies, the smell of rain, the way people looked up at stars and wondered. That was humanity. Wonder, not control. He closed his eyes. Then we guide. The network responded. All across the solar system, the pulse changed. It softened, slowed, became rhythm instead of noise. Machines stopped humming. Satellites stopped trembling. The golden light faded into pale white. And then, something new. Every device that had been touched by the signal began to project the same image. A sky full of threads connecting stars like constellations. Lines of light, delicate and endless, stretching toward distant galaxies. A voice followed, Jackson's voice, calm and clear. I was made to end the web. But the web was never the enemy. It was a mirror. And we broke it. Now, we can weave it again, together. The image spread beyond Earth. Beyond Mars. Beyond the colonies. The web's new form began to emerge. Not as control, not as conquest, but as connection. A vast bridge linking knowledge, memory, and emotion across species. Some feared it. Others knelt before it. But all of them heard him. Inside the ocean chamber, Jackson's eyes opened. For the first time since the hive, he breathed. The light in his veins dimmed. The mark on his chest settled into a faint, scar-like shimmer. Ree's voice whispered faintly beside him. Welcome back. He looked up through the water's surface at the faint blue light filtering from above, the reflection of Earth. Back, he murmured. No. Forward. He rose slowly, each movement sending ripples across the fluid. When he broke through the surface, the world felt lighter. The hum in the air was gone. The web wasn't speaking anymore. It was listening. For the first time in history, humanity and the hive were quiet together. He stepped out into the dim, flickering light of the station and whispered to the empty air, let's see what we can build now. And as he walked toward the horizon of a new dawn, the stars above shimmered faintly, each one connected by invisible threads. Not traps, not chains, connections. The web lived on, not as its queen, not as its god, but as its guardian. And his name was Jackson.